What is going on, guys? Craig 1287 here, and I'm bringing you my review for Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Now, it might be an overly used idiom, but it's hard to make a review about Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, henceforth referred to as ME for short, without saying that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. You can see the influences from the Assassin's Creed series as well as WB Games' own Batman Arkham series within the first 10 minutes of actual gameplay. This is in no way a bad thing. ME takes the best aspects of those two series and improves upon them while also adding one of the greatest systems this industry has seen in a very long time. Before I get into the review itself, I'll go ahead and address this and say that I purchased the game for about $35 from Green Man Gaming, but I will be reviewing this with the full mindset of it being a $50 typically PC game or $60 console game. That is my mindset. And as for the computer that I played this on, I'm going to be talking about the graphics and performance, so I just want to clarify the key components in my computer. That would be the CPU is an Intel i7-3770 at clock speeds, standard clock speeds. A NVIDIA GTX 780, again, not overclocked at all. I've got 16 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, and I'm running this on Windows 7. It's a 64-bit version. So, let's get to the actual review. Now, for the graphics and performance, I played ME on Ultra Graphics, except for the textures. I didn't actually download the Ultra Pack for that, so that was just on High. But everything else, tessellation, that weird junk with the hair, and everything else is on, and it is on Ultra if the settings allow for it. And the game looks great, but more importantly, it played great. Sadly, and for some odd reason, the game is capped on PC at 100 frames per second. While this is much better than being capped at, say, 60 frames per second, it's still a cap nonetheless, and capped at a very odd number. Why not cap it at 120 rather than 100? Despite that, though, while running on all Ultra, I had no problem staying above 60 frames per second nearly all the time. There are moments when there are 20 or 30 or even more enemies on my screen attacking me or attacking each other. At those points, my frame rate did go down to around 50 frames per second, but that was a very rare thing. Monolith, the developers, did a fantastic job with the graphical options menu, giving you a lot of choices to find that balance of graphics versus performance, and made it easy to understand what each option is and how taxing it will be, giving certain little details as to how much megabytes of video RAM it will actually be using. Now, the exception to this is that one hair option, something about alpha, that one still makes absolutely no sense, but I've left it on, and again, the performance is solid. As for the visuals and the animations, the visual design of ME is not putting all that graphical power that they give to waste. The engine is being used very effectively and efficiently. It looks great. The game just has a very awesome appeal to it. Some people might get a little worn out by the look of Mordor, as it is a desolate wasteland, but personally I never tired of it. Just in case you are one that would tire of it, there is a second region that you do unlock partially through the game, and it changes the visuals up in a very pleasant way, so you might not get tired of it for very long. Again, I was fine with it. I love the look of Mordor. The animations are a big star of ME. Gollum looks almost identical to his big screen counterparts, and the combat is just incredibly visceral. This game is very, very violent, and recreating that scene in Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring when Aragorn fights Lurtz, spoiler alert, right before Boromir dies, that is something that you will happily and easily do repeatedly, is recreating that scene. It never gets old thanks to the amazing and varied animations that Emmy has to offer. As for the soundtrack and the voice acting and the sound design, all of this is complemented. All the visuals, all the animations is all complemented by the great sound design, voice acting, and the score. If you enjoyed the score for the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the 2 so far released Hobbit films, then you're going to feel right at home with Emmy's score. The voice acting is some of the best I have heard in a very, very long time. And all of the orcs, all of the uruks are just spot on and all become someone or something that I just cannot wait to decapitate them. They set the tone every time, and you just cannot wait to destroy these captains and these war chiefs. Then it comes time to actually decapitating them, and the juxtaposition of the visuals with the sound of the cuts as you cut through their flesh, as you're clashing against their swords and javelins and shields, it's just incredibly satisfying. The immersion level when there's a storm going on is some of the best that I've seen or heard since the Stalker series. And for those of you that have not played the Stalker series, this is a huge compliment. As for the story, just the relationship between the visual design, or just as the relationship between the visual design and the graphical fidelity, those two things, the quality of the voice acting wouldn't really go far if there wasn't a quality story to match it. This is always the hardest part to cover in a review, as people often don't want to have the story spoiled. So I'll just say that the story is great. It drew me in with a fantastically crafted opening sequence that cleverly serves as the game's tutorial, and it kept me attached all the way through the end, since I truly did want to see things resolved. Now on to the gameplay. This is, of course, the most important aspect in any game, and it's what distinguishes a video game from all other forms of entertainment. And Emmy knocks the gameplay way out of the park. It takes the hand-to-hand combat of the Batman Arkham series and makes it a little more forgiving by pretty much just making it more responsive and instant. You're not going to be penalized for being a little too early or too late, unlike you would be in the Arkham series. And unlike the Arkham series, there is not a Metroidvania kind of level design, in that you will not be closed off to certain areas that you eventually gain access to over time by unlocking new gadgets. Though that's not to say you're not going to be learning any new things and getting new gadgets. In this case, not really gadgets, but awesome combat maneuvers. You will definitely be getting a lot of stuff as you progress through the game. World traversal is similar to Assassin's Creed in that it's very parkour inspired or free running inspired, and it involves climbing towers to unlock the game's fast travel points. I can honestly say though that at no point in my playthrough did I ever bother with the fast travel system, which, I mean, I guess that's kind of bad when you're making a review. You should, expose yourself to all the different aspects, but it's quite simple how fast travel works in any game, really. But running around, it was fun enough. When you learn to dominate one of the vicious creatures in the game called Caragors, I mean, that stuff is just amazing. But even if you can't find one of them, simply going on foot with the Elvish Speed upgrade that you unlock very early in the game, it's just a blast to traverse through the game. Now, the best gameplay aspect of ME is by far the Nemesis system. There are higher ranking orcs and uruks that are involved with the Nemesis system, and it is what will give you, the player, the unique gaming experience that no other player will have. As you kill these high ranking enemies, you will thin out Sauron's army, but they can be repopulated if you slack off. If they kill you, they get promoted, things like that. If you lose a fight, your killer becomes more powerful, and they can be promoted up into the ranks. As they become more powerful, they gain strengths, they'll lose weaknesses, and you'll need to interrogate their subordinates to gain intel. You can also find intel in other means, but typically I found it by interrogating their subordinates, and this will give you details as to what your enemy's strengths and weaknesses are. And yeah, you'll have a better chance of facing them on the battlefield. You'll learn things like what they're weak to, if it's ranged attacks or stealth attacks, fire, things like that. If seeing Caragors scares them, that is an awesome thing to use. But you'll also figure out what their strengths are. You'll learn how their attacks are handled. You'll learn if they're a slow person or a fast person. You'll learn if trying to counter their attacks might not be so handy. So a lot of this stuff comes into play, and it makes each engagement against these high-ranking enemies incredibly amazing. And as you've seen in the background of this review, the gameplay footage, these fights can get intense. So my closing thoughts. In a sea of recent letdowns from large, highly marketed games, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor is such a refreshing title that truly delivers in every way. Those of you with a nice surround sound headset and with a beastly PC will not be let down by the painstaking minutia that Monolith have put into making Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. The Nemesis system is just incredible and will hopefully be developed upon by future games. Please guys, steal this idea and run with it. It is awesome. It needs to happen in more games. Everything about this game is just polished so well that it's hard to not even recommend it to someone that hates violence in games. Guys, I give this one of the easiest 5 out of 5s in recent years. This game is simply stunning in every way, from sound, visuals, gameplay, story, characters, everything. Go buy it, pick it up, and enjoy. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. Have a good one. Ta-ta.